Why, hello there. That's kind of cringy. What is that laugh? Okay, you might hear this creaking, but just don't mind it. So today we're going to be doing a little bit of Get Ready With Me. We're going to be also watching some like ghost commentary. Well, not ghost commentary, but it's going to be some paranormal stuff caught on camera, as well as from that we had there was stuff brought up about the Amityville house whole story. If you don't know about it, you can obviously see what it's about once we get into this. But yeah, we're just doing a Get Ready With Me. It's just a very chill moment. I think it's a lot of fun to be able to do these sort of things too. Okay, so the fact that my camera was doing that, that's, it's a little creepy in itself, but either way, it does that from time to time. But yeah, so I think it'd be a great way to kind of, just hang out, chill, and everything with all of you. So yeah, if you would like to see how I got this look, I don't really talk much about what I'm doing. I'm more of just hanging out and listening as we're going. And you could see me putting together this look. If you do have any questions about any of the products that I used today, I will put in the description what I did end up using. So if you are, curious about that whatsoever, we obviously too have a more in-depth makeup tutorial. If you want to check that out, I will link that below as well. So as I say per usual, I always find myself saying this, but without further ado, if you would like to get ready with me and check out what we're going to be watching, let's go. Drinking some coffee because I got some here. This is actually my second cup. But yeah, so grab your snacks, watch some spoopy stuff with us, or with myself, I should say. And yeah, if you have any questions about what I'm doing makeup wise and everything, please be sure to ask below. I do have a mirror right here too, and it has a light attached to it, so that's why it's like beaming on my face. But yeah, either way, I think that's really it as far as explaining what I'm about to do. But let me know too, do you believe in ghosts? And if you do or do not, why? Have you encountered some ghost? Possibly. All right. Before I like go on a tangent or anything like that, let's do it. I'm so hungry. I feel like I always have to say how hungry I am because I just am always hungry. Might be an issue, but yeah. Nonetheless, let's go. Oops.
At first, I thought it was a camera problem.
Such a great movie. If you haven't seen Insidious, so good.
And then I saw her again.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 creepiest ghosts caught on camera.
Could this be the face of a famous ghost caught on camera? Turn it off! Turn it off!
She came back to pick up her print, and lo and behold, there was Abraham Lincoln standing behind her. He's got his hands on her shoulders.
For this list, we'll be looking at mysterious figures that some believe to be ghosts. Whether you believe these are the real deal or not, this imagery will give you the chills. Do you believe in ghosts? Let us know in the comments.
Hey, I just said that.
Number 10, the works of William Hope. William Hope was one of the first individuals to specialize in spirit photography, putting together a portfolio of otherworldly images. He even served as the founder and leader of the Crew Circle spiritualist group. Some of Hope's spirit photos were proven to be fake, and many believed that he was a fraud in general. Even so, Hope would give us some of the most iconic photos in all of ghost hunting. In a photo of Charles Tweedale and his wife, the spirit of her late father can allegedly be seen in the background. A similar photo supposedly reunited Mr. and Mrs. Gibson with their late son. Arguably the most famous photo Hope took was of Mrs. Hortense Leverson as her departed husband loomed over her. Number 9. Terrifying Terrier.
Aw,
Losing a
look at the
cherished pet is never
puppy!
easy, although it wasn't
Nope.
just the owners who had to bid farewell to this terrier. The bigger dog in this other photo, which was taken a few weeks after the loss, was the terrier's playmate. The terrier's death took a noticeable toll on the big dog, but the pooch's little friend might have been closer than anyone thought. If you look closely at the photo, you can spot what looks like the terrier levitating over the big dog. Was this a photography trick, a similar looking dog, or was the terrier not ready to go to the big fire hydrant in the sky? In any case, the story was fascinating enough to make it into a 1939 issue of Life magazine. Number 8, Geneva King.
Do they miss me in Chicago?
Yes,
I was actually just talking about this movie yesterday
How gorgeous.
on stream.
They're absolutely in mourning.
No amount of fire or freshness can challenge what a man will store up in his ghostly heart. That's one of Daisy Buchanan's most memorable quotes in F. Scott Fitzgerald magnum opus, The Great Gatsby. It's widely believed that Daisy was inspired by socialite Geneva King, who was briefly involved with Fitzgerald during their youth. King passed away in 1980, but could the green light still be burning at the end of the dock? This photo taken by Christy Ranieri in 2018 seems to suggest so. Ranieri was outside King's old summer home in Lake Forest, Illinois, when she captured this eerie image. Ranieri believes that the strange face in the photo is King's ghost, noting a haunting resemblance to the late heiress.
See, you were there all along. And every idea,
Also a great movie, just saying.
every decision. Of course, if anything is not to your liking, I'll change it.
Number 7, The Brown Lady of Raynham Hall. The only thing more chilling than this photo is its backstory. The ghostly figure is supposedly Lady Dorothy Walpole, the sister of Prime Minister Robert Walpole and the second wife of Charles Townshend. As legend has it, Townshend learned that Dorothy had an affair with nobleman Thomas Wharton prior to their marriage. Holding a fake funeral for her, Townshend locked Dorothy up at Raynham Hall, where she remained until her passing in 1726. While much of that story is based on rumors, this photography is all the proof some spiritualists need. Taken by Captain Hubert C. Provand in 1936, the photo supposedly shows Dorothy's ghost wandering down the stairs of Raynham Hall. She was apparently wearing a brown dress, hence the nickname the Brown Lady. Number 6, Spectre of Newby Church.
But how
In
can you see that if
1963,
the...
Reverend Kenneth F. Lord snapped this photo inside the Newby Hall Church of Christ the Consoler. The church's beautiful architecture is largely outshined by a dark figure hanging out in the corner. Wearing what appears to be a hooded robe and a white shroud, the ghostly figure came to be known as the Newby Monk, as well as the Spectre of Newby Church. Where some people believe this to be a 9-foot-tall 16th century monk, others claim that it's merely a costumed accomplice standing on a box. It's also been theorized that the figure is a product of double exposure, which is when multiple images are placed over each other to create a single image, although a few photography experts would beg to differ. Number 5, Ellen Hamel. We've all heard the stranger in the backseat urban legend, and this
when it comes down to it, I give major props to people that will sit there. There's a helicopter. But I will say I give major props to people that will sit there and basically go out of their way to debunk things. I mean, there's so much that can be done now with cameras and obviously like Photoshop and everything like that. So it's very, very hard to come across things that haven't been tampered with. I mean, you see this all with like the like very popular Ghost Adventures stuff and everything like that, paranormal things. It's like you sit there and now it's like, okay, how much of this has been actually tampered with? Like how much of this is legit and all this stuff. So it's very, very hard to sit there and try and convince people, especially I feel like it's a lot easier to mess with pictures rather than videos because usually 9 times out of 10, you can, well, okay, so I should say it like this. When it comes to videos, it's easier to tell if something has been messed with in a video rather than a picture, depending on, of course, how badly it's been like manipulated or anything, photoshopped or whatever. Just because I do feel like you can see a little like blip, a little blip in the video whenever something gets messed with, whereas with the picture it's kind of like, okay, this person's skills are really, really good. Like, so it's hard to tell if something has been manipulated in a sense to where it isn't obviously like fake real. I'll have to see what I was saying. But nonetheless, I mean, this whole scenario, I feel like when people look at older pictures like this, you're very, very much more like prone to believe that that hasn't been messed with. But doesn't mean it hasn't been, you know? So I don't know. It's very hard when you see stuff online nowadays, people capturing stuff on camera, to believe it. Just because there are so many more experts out there that know how to manipulate a video. So I don't know, you could still do it with old photos. You could still mess around with videos and everything, unless you see stuff like right in front of your face and everything like that. It's very hard to believe stuff, but I don't know. That's just my whole thought behind it. You could, you know, think however you want, but yeah, that's just how I think. So, moving on, let's go. That was my little tangent. Let's get it.
Spine-chilling photo only gives you more reason to keep an eye on the rearview mirror. In 1959, Mabel Chinnery took a photo of her husband in the driver's seat of their car. Chinnery's mother, Ellen Hamill, can supposedly be seen in the back seat. The thing is, Mrs. Hamill had died a week earlier, and the photo was taken shortly after visiting her grave. What's more, Chinnery's mother liked to sit in the exact spot whenever Mr. Chinnery drove her around. Again, double exposure might be the obvious explanation for this alleged hitchhiking ghost. However, at least one photo expert believed it was genuine, according to Parade magazine, which published the story. Number 4. Freddie Jackson. At first glance, this photo of a Royal Air Force squadron might not seem like anything out of the ordinary. It stands out for 2 reasons, though. First, it was taken by Sir Victor Goddard, who fought in both World Wars. Second, you can allegedly see the ghost of air mechanic Freddie Jackson in the background. 2 days before the photo was taken in 1919, Jackson tragically died in an airplane propeller accident. Those who knew Freddie couldn't help but notice his resemblance to the ghostly face in the photo. Some like to think that Jackson was unaware of his passing and thus joined in the group pic. The photo was later published in 1975, and the exact nature behind it continues to baffle. Number 3. Lord Combermere. In 1891, the 2nd Viscount Combermere was laid to rest. If this photo is any indication, however, Lord Combermere might have been absent from his own funeral. Shortly before the funeral, Lord Combermere's sister-in-law, Sybil Corbet, arranged a camera at the Abbey Library and took an hour-long exposure. Combermere Abbey was 4 miles away from St. Margaret's Church, where the funeral was being held. When the photo was developed, an apparition resembling Lord Combermere was found sitting in his favorite chair. The most logical explanation is that one of the staff members stayed behind and sat in the chair, although they were all apparently at the funeral. Perhaps Lord Combermere was taking a brief rest before moving on to the great beyond. Number 2. The Amityville Ghost.
Oh, yeah.
Ronald DeFeo Jr. was infamously responsible.
Okay, so anything that deals with Amityville, maybe we'll watch something like that here in a moment. But anything that deals with Amityville, like, always, I don't know what it is, but it always gives me the chills. I think it's just more of the fact of, like, how brutal everything was as well. But anything that deals with it, I find it super, super, super intriguing, but also very, very just very uneasy. But I enjoy it and everything like that, just because it's so interesting. And it's probably one of, like, the paranormal investigations, paranormal things that I have actually sat there and I've been like, there's no way that this can't be legit. Like, obviously, everybody has their opinions when it comes to stuff like this, demonic possession and everything, but this is definitely something that I have always just been like, no, like, something happened. Like, there was some sort of possession, call it what you will and everything like that. Call me crazy. I really don't care. But yeah, this whole entire thing, if this is the one where it's that deals with the staircase, then yeah, this freaks me out.
2. The Amityville Ghost. Ronald DeFeo Jr. was infamously responsible for the deaths of 6 family members in 1974. 13 months after the murders took place, the DeFeo house was purchased by the Lutz family, who left after 28 days due to alleged paranormal activity.
I'm just wiping this on my shirt.
House
These movies, so good.
Grant this through Jesus Christ our Lord.
So good.
This would all provide the basis for the Amityville horror books and films. But is the house truly haunted? Who better to find out than Ed and Lorraine Warren, two names you'll recognize from the Conjuring movies. Investigating the
Great
house a few
movies
weeks
too.
after Willett's
Oh,
family departed,
it gives me the
Warrens walked away with
chills.
a photo of a bright-eyed little boy. There were apparently no
It gives me
children
the
in
chills.
house,
Oh my
leading some
God.
to believe
That
this
is
was the ghost of
creepy.
9-year-old John Matthew DeFeo, Ronald's brother. Before we unveil our most ghostly #1 pick, here are a few honorable mentions. The original photobomber.
Yeah, like I said, when it comes down to the Amityville, like that sort of thing, and that, whether or not that picture is real, like just the whole premise of it and everything like that, it freaks me out. Like, I'm just like, always, I get the chills. It does not matter how many times I see that picture. It doesn't matter how many times it pops up, how many times people will say, oh, it's fake and everything like that. Somebody was there. I don't care. That video or that picture is creepy. But, okay, that's it. That we're gonna watch more as I finish getting ready of the Amityville. But yeah, let's go.
On the tulip staircase.
I'm just blending my eyeshadow, don't mind me too.
Come play with us at the Stanley Hotel.
I want to go there.
Jason Griffith's grandfather, 2 months after he passed. Man in Black at Sefton Church.
It's time to do the wings. Let's go.
Abraham Lincoln. Before there was William Hope, there was William H. Mumler, widely considered the first spirit photographer. Although many believed Mumler to be a fraud, this photo would forever engrave his name in the paranormal history books.
She came back to pick up her print, and lo and behold, there was Abraham Lincoln standing behind her. He's got his hands on her shoulders.
Mumler's subject is Mary Todd Lincoln, and the ghostly figure putting his hand on her shoulders
do you know
is
it's him?
allegedly President Abraham Lincoln, who was, of course, assassinated in 1865. It's been said that this photo was taken in 1869, and Mumler didn't know until after it developed that Mrs. Lincoln had been in his presence. Another account claims that
trying
Mumler
to
took it in
see
the
how I could
1870s, and
get
Mrs.
in the
Lincoln
camera.
approached him under a pseudonym. As for the photo's legitimacy, maybe it's fake, but only honest Abe himself would know for sure.
I got my tater tots, so. Give me some of your tots. So, like I said, we're going to watch some Amityville horror documentary. This obviously is an older video and everything, but yeah. I think it'd be interesting to just kind of go through and watch and kind of see what they have to say. Like I said, this whole thing, just whenever I hear stuff about it and everything, like it gives me the chills, so. Let's go.
Amityville, New York, home to the world's most famous haunted house. In Amityville, it was the day that lives in infamy when Ronald DeFeo took a high-powered rifle and took the lives of his parents, brothers, and sisters.
I couldn't stop if I wanted to. So I thought somebody was inside moving me.
13 months later, a new family moved into the house on Long Island.
There was a clanging, there was a banging.
If you haven't watched the Amityville movies, highly recommend them. Like older ones, obviously too. There's like the one with Ryan Reynolds in it. That one's really good too, but I'm telling you, there's a different sort of like creepy factor that comes with the older Amityville movies that are just so good.
It's a scraping.
And discovered they were not alone.
Whatever was there was very intelligent, very impatient. Its abilities are more powerful than we really understand.
It was December of 1975 when George and Kathy Lutz crossed the threshold of their dream house on Ocean Avenue. 28 days later, they abandoned the home, terrified by a series of bizarre and mysterious incidents. What's the truth behind the so-called haunted house? and the real-life horror story that inspired a best-selling book and a hit movie. Join us for Amityville, The Haunting.
Amityville, a quaint village on the south shore of Long Island, about an hour's drive from
I'm
the
pretty
hustle and
sure.
bustle of
Let me
New York
see.
City.
I don't know if the house is still for sale. I know this is just how my brain works sometimes. But let me see if I could look this up. How much is the Amityville house worth? The house, like, is $605,000. So it says the house that inspired the Amityville horror book and movies has sold for $605,000, more than $200,000 less than its asking price. Or price. Yeah, less than 200,000. Now, let me ask you this. Would you be able to buy a house? Would you be able to buy a house that people are or were murdered in or anything like that? Like, if you knew, would you much rather know beforehand or find out later? Like, would that sort of thing bother you? Let me know. These tater tots are so fucking good. I mean, so hacking good.
A seemingly ordinary American town whose name is derived from the Latin word for friend. Yet it is also a name that remains inextricably linked to a series of events that began.
Anytime I think Amity, I always think of this.
Family, and ended with another family's nightmare. The story became known to the world as the Amityville Horror, but it's a story that the people of this closed-door community would just as soon forget.
All that publicity and the movies I thought were ridiculous too. I just didn't believe it. I guess I don't believe the supernatural.
It's the drunk kids that come back looking for a thrill night. They have nothing to do. So let's go to Amityville and find the house.
I mean,
long before gaining notoriety
I'm not drunk,
for its
but
house of horrors, Amityville was a community rich in history.
Will Rogers lived here. Annie Oakley was here. Goddard, the great space flight engineer, shot off the first rocket here. Even
my brain's gonna be like so all over the place.
Day here supping, as he said in his diary, as he completed his tour of Long Island.
But for nearly 3
I'm gonna be
decades,
here like
a certain
trying
house
to
in
finish my
Amityville has
makeup, but
attracted
can't.
more attention than any other landmark, and cast an ominous shadow over this otherwise idyllic coastal village. This modern-day horror story has its origins in the history of Amityville and Ocean Avenue itself. A history that dates back to the region's earliest settlers, the Montaukett Indians. According to legend, the Indians once believed the land now known as Ocean Avenue to be a power spot, perhaps even an area infested by demons. Tribal enemies, or those said to be possessed by evil spirits, were left to die on this land and then buried face down, cursed to stare for all eternity into the dark abode their spirit was sent to join.
Montaukets believe there is good and there is evil. The spirit is very movable and it can come and go and do a lot of things.
Jay Anson's The Amityville Horror documents another legend about the Ocean Avenue property, one dating back to the Salem witch trials of the late 1600s. According to this account, a man named John Ketchum, after being forced out of Massachusetts for practicing witchcraft, set up residence on or near the spot of Amityville's famed House of Horrors. It is said that Ketchum continued his alleged devil worship until his death, and that his body may be buried somewhere on the property. Early deeds do suggest that Ketchum may have existed, but whether he fled from Salem or ever practiced witchcraft on the land cannot be verified.
We were never able to physically connect the Ketchums who were burned at the stake in Salem, Massachusetts. But it's very interesting that there's a Ketchum Street or a Ketchum Place right in the immediate vicinity.
Yes, my brain too goes automatically to Pokemon. Even though I'm not like a Pokemon fan, but still.
Avenue was built for John Moynihan and his
Ketchum.
family. But what isn't commonly known is that this house, which now stands just a couple of blocks away, once occupied the famous Ocean Avenue lot.
A house built in 1782, which had been moved because of continuous problems with the people in the house. They moved out. They didn't stay very long.
Representatives for the Amityville Historical Society, who refuse to appear on camera, insist that the only reason the original house was picked up and moved was because Mr. and Mrs. Moynihan needed a larger house to accommodate their growing family.
It's insane to think that a house can just be picked up and moved.
But what of the house that stands on the lot today?
Coming back to 112 Ocean Avenue, the families that I found had resided in that dwelling place appeared to have a calamity within each one. There was a drowning of the bulkhead in the back. There were problems for each family.
Since access to death certificates is limited under New York state law, the deaths said to have occurred on or near the property could not be confirmed, leaving people to speculate about the true history of the house on Ocean Avenue.
I will say, one of the worst things I feel like that, I mean, it's one of the worst things, not the absolute worst thing, but is when somebody just doesn't believe you. Like, in instances like this, especially involving, and I get it that, like, people will sit there and lie and everything, but, like, when you know that you're telling the truth and you're trying to, like, just tell people, look, like, this is what happened and everything, but they just don't believe you, it's probably, like, one of the most frustrating things ever. But yeah, I feel like in these sort of scenarios, sure, there are probably people that exaggerate the truth a little bit just to kind of get some 5 minutes of fame or anything like that. But still, it's what you get with Hollywood, is the fact of when something's so popular, so many people are like, oh, I can make maybe a little bit of money off of this, which sucks because then in turn, the people that are actually telling the truth don't get believed as much. So that's just my 2 cents.
In the summer of 1965, the house at 112 Ocean Avenue is sold to the DeFeos, a close-knit Italian Catholic family. It is a prosperous time for the city-bred DeFeos, a prosperity evidenced by their move from a small Brooklyn apartment to the 6-bedroom, 2.5-story Dutch colonial on Long Island's affluent South Shore. The book High Hopes, The Amityville Murders, an in-depth examination of the DeFeo case based on interviews, police records, and sworn trial testimony, takes its title from the sign posted on the DeFeo's front lawn.
I think they were more than middle class. And I'm sure
Excuse me.
when they moved from Brooklyn, when they bought that house, that they had high hopes.
The DeFeos have 5 children: John Matthew, Mark, Allison, Dawn, and their eldest son, Ronald Jr., better known as Ronnie or Butch.
Ronnie had a close relationship with his mother. His relationship with his father was a love-hate relationship.
Mr. DeFeo's way of showing love to his children, especially his eldest son, Ronnie, is by spoiling them with money and material things.
It would be nothing for his father to give him, $1,000 for him to spend. He never really had to work. He had a lot of jobs that he lost. He wound up working in a car agency for the father, but he didn't have to. I think they thought that money would make the difference. Look how wonderful our life is. But it's not
In a
very
sense,
wonderful.
Buying happiness or money buying happiness.
Discord may not have been the only forces at work in the DeFeo.
I mean, maybe for some people, but
From the very beginning, Ronald DeFeo Jr. senses that he is not alone in the house.
trying to think what color I want to do. On the One of my favorite things that well, I shouldn't say that I've been doing, but yesterday I did a look and I used this top color right here. And you know, I have the dark on top, but I like to break it up with some color on the bottom. So I don't know if I want to go like more, maybe like even nude. No, I really don't want orange. Maybe this one. Is this one like a burnt orange? No, I feel like I did that color. What do I want to do? I mean, that color was really pretty too. Maybe I want this one. That'd be kind of nice. No. I mean, we could just go like kind of boring. Is that boring? That's kind of boring. I mean, I could do what I did yesterday and just add a little bit of like something new to it. Like, doesn't have to be exactly the same. I could kind of show, but what I did, if that's okay. I don't know what kind of voice I'm doing right now, but yeah. Let's go. I'm gonna just click play. There we go.
Noises of different things at night. Noise, you know, like you thought somebody might have been walking around, pipes banging. Oh, they were always screaming. Somebody's in the house, ghost, all of it. Once in a while you'd hear screaming, but there wasn't nobody screaming.
According to trial testimony, by 1973, the incidents of violence and abuse within the family begin to escalate.
Ronnie's mother was downstairs doing laundry, but the kids were making a tremendous fuss. And she was yelling at the kids were yelling, and the father kept yelling at her to shut up. He wanted to eat his meal in peace. And she comes up the stairs with a basket of laundry, and the father walks over to the stairs and punches her in the face. She falls down the stairs. He closes the door and he says, "Now we'll have some peace. We can eat in peace." And that scene, for me, summed up what life must have been like in that house.
I had no idea about that.
Home life, Ronnie immerses himself in Long Island's South Shore bar scene and the early 1970s drug subculture.
He was into heroin. He was big into speed. He had used, he would take LSD. So I think he was a very heavy user, and he probably started very early.
Hold on one second. Yeah, so some of this stuff I'm also learning along with all of you as well. Like some of the stuff I had no clue about, like within their family or anything like that. So we're kind of learning this along the way together. So, which I think is really cool too, because it kind of like sets up for that discussion of, you know, how I felt about like something, and then, you know, it could change. It could change over time. And that's what's so great about opinions, is you could change your opinion, okay? All right, let's go. Actually, I just went to grab my eyebrow pencil, and then I think I'm going to make this more red on the bottom.
As Ronnie spirals out of control, one family argument nearly turns lethal.
All sorts of violence is going on. Ronnie's sister Dawn and her father are having a violent argument. And so Ronnie's going to settle the argument.
Picked up a shotgun. I knew the gun was loaded, you know. And I said, that is a hell of a want to kill him. Hey! The gun didn't go off.
And it turns out there are bullets in the chamber, but nothing happened. So the father felt that was the wonderful miracle. His son didn't kill him.
In a show of devotion, Mr. DeFeo surrounds the house with religious statuary. But is it divine intervention or something more sinister which impels the family to seek help from the Catholic Church?
They felt the devil was in the house. That's what brought all that religion into the house.
Mr. DeFeo went to St. Joseph Shrine 6 months before he was murdered to bring back a priest who would say the prayers of exorcism in his home. And from all the information I learned, candles were toppling over, doors were opening and closing.
A letter from St. Joseph's Oratory in Montreal, Canada, states that they have no official record of this incident.
When people asked Mr. DeFeo why he had all these special holy statues around his home, he
Always
said,
covering
"Because
shit
I have
up
a
like
devil
that.
on my back."
Nope.
But was Mr. DeFeo referring to the devil incarnate or to his deeply troubled son?
Maybe it was fear. Maybe it's that, is it possible that down deep they all loved each other? Or that it's something he didn't want to face, that his son could be capable of murder?
Whatever the source of their fear, the DeFeos seem to have an uncanny awareness of the terrible fate soon to befall them.
Lynn Nanowitz, the housekeeper to the DeFeo family, stated to me on several occasions during the trial that Mrs. DeFeo told her that there was going to be a terrible tragedy occurring to her family.
Desperate to escape his tumultuous home life, Ronnie moves out of the house on several occasions.
I started getting cold and vicious inside. No, it seemed to be the whole problem was originated and ended in that house.
The problem
I hate
was
this,
that Mr. DeFeo used all his resources, all
what the
his
hell is this called?
connections
I hate this,
to go out searching for his son each time and dragged him back to the home. This was
concealer.
just
Oh my
helping
goodness.
The volcano become more violent within
Like, it's very brightening, but it creases like
By
no
the
other.
early days of November 1974, tensions in the household reach a breaking point.
Just days before the murders, he and his father had an argument where his father referred to him as a devil. It came close to blows. Ronnie stormed out. And you know, to say, if I don't get out of here, I'm going to kill all of you. And he did.
November 13th, 1974. While his family sleeps, 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr. sits in a darkened room watching television.
The television program he was watching was an army movie called Castle Keep. And in this picture, the last 15 to 20 minutes is complete destruction of the American and German troops. Ronnie said that during this movie, he heard his family members whispering, and he thought or believed that they were conspiring to kill him. At or about the end of the movie, he said that a person with black hands appeared and gave him the rifle. And he went ahead and he proceeded to shoot each member of his family.
No, I shot my father first, then I crossed over onto my mother beside the bed. After that, I tell you honestly, I couldn't stop if I wanted to. I couldn't put the gun down. So I felt somebody was inside moving me.
He went into another room and shot his two younger brothers. Then he went in and shot his younger sister. And then he went upstairs and shot his older sister, Dawn.
When it is over, 6 members of the DeFeo family, Ronald Sr., his wife Louise, daughters Dawn, 18, and Allison, 13, and sons Mark, 11, and John Matthew, 9, lie slaughtered in their beds. The following evening, Ronnie himself reports the murders, citing his family's alleged tragedy. Within hours, however, he confesses. News of the tragedy spreads quickly, leaving friends, family, and the entire community devastated.
There was enormous shock. I think it's still one of the things for which Long Island remains infamous.
At DeFeo's trial 1 year later, defense attorney William Weber tries to prove that his client was legally insane at the time he committed the murders, and therefore not responsible for his actions. Ultimately, the jury finds him sane and guilty on all 6 counts of second-degree murder. Yet even as Ronald DeFeo Jr. serves 6 consecutive 25-year-to-life prison terms, several troubling mysteries about the murders remain.
To this day, no one is certain how Ronald DeFeo Jr. killed his parents, 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and nobody heard a thing, how none of them even woke up. Maybe they were drugged. No, that proved not to be true.
The next theory was that, well, he had a silencer on it. That theory didn't hold water. There would be some fragments of the silencer that would have been left on the crime scene.
Except for the DeFeo's dog barking, nobody heard a thing. Well, how does 6 people get killed and there are no gunshots?
One possible explanation is offered by parapsychologist Hans Holzer.
When there is a strong psychic field, sound will be inhibited. We know this from other cases because the electromagnetic field, which is representative of an entity of this kind, does interfere with the perception of sound, and sound was not heard.
Others believe that the position of the 6 bodies bears an eerie similarity to the local Indian legend, which holds that tribal enemies were buried face down. An Indian curse, some say, may have driven Ronald DeFeo Jr. to murder.
Young DeFeo had always been very high-strung and certainly given to psychic ability. And it is not inconceivable that the influence in the house
That's what they always say, like, if you're more prone to possession, if your life and, you know, mental state is
Town
on the lower
officials and
side.
the local Indians themselves dispute any notion of curses or sacred burial grounds. Yet no matter what questions remain, the village of Amityville will be forever linked with these tragic murders.
There isn't a day that goes by that I'm not asked questions relating to the DeFeo case. This was a tragic incident that
I mean,
happened
anytime you think of
with
Amityville, if you know about this situation, more than likely you're gonna know about the Amityville
anyone else's neighbor. So I think that's
possession.
the essence here, is that this was an American family that was wiped out.
Why aren't you working?
After DeFeo's trial and conviction, the people of Amityville believed the horror was over. It had just begun.
Why are you acting like this?
In the summer of 1975, newlyweds George and Kathleen Lutz begin house hunting on Long Island. George, a 28-year-old ex-Marine,
This is what the
surveying firm.
Ryan Reynolds one is about.
Kathy, 30, has 3 children from a previous marriage. Daniel, 10, Christopher, 7, and Melissa, 5. Although the Lutzes have only a modest budget, the real estate broker talks them into viewing a certain Dutch colonial overlooking the water on upscale Ocean Avenue. This is the first interview the Lutzes have granted in more than 20 years.
Hold on a
We
second.
first saw the house in the fall of 1975. Went over with the broker. She said, I wanted to show you what the other half of Amityville
There you go.
lived like.
Pulling up to it, she started to tell us things that the house had as far as the number of bedrooms.
When we walked in the house, Kathy looked around right from the foyer and just started smiling. She really fell in love with the house. It was very obvious. And we walked through, it had 6 bedrooms and a boathouse for our boat and 2-car garage and a heated pool and a basement on the water, which was very rare.
All the things that we talked about, we found in one place. For George and myself.
Know what they say, if it's too good to be true, it usually is.
A new home, space for everybody, space for growth.
Only after George, Kathy, and the children fall in love with the house does the broker mention its gruesome past.
And she explained to us about the DeFeo massacre.
So again, would you still move in?
Change our view on the house at all.
We discussed it among the 5 of us, and there was no problem. It was, you know, it was unfortunate that that had happened there. It was reflected in the price, of course, but we weren't superstitious, thinking that there was anything wrong that way.
There was a sign outside the front of the house when we first looked at it. It said High Hopes. And when I look now, those same high hopes were within us.
On December 18th, 1975, 13 months after the murders, George and Kathy move in with their 3 children and the family dog, Harry. A friend of George's, after learning of the house's tragic history, insists that he get it blessed by a Catholic priest. Lutz, a Methodist, calls upon the only priest he knows, Father Ralph Pecoraro.
I first met Father Ralph, which we came to know him as Father Ray, when I was in the process of obtaining an annulment from my first marriage. He and I became good friends.
On the same day, the
I'm like very, very intrigued by this. That's why I'm not talking.
I was blessing the sewing room. It was cold. It was really cold in there. And I thought, gee, this is peculiar, because it was a lovely day out. It was winter, yes, but it didn't account for that kind of coldness.
It wasn't until much later that we learned what it was that had happened to him while he was doing that.
Oh,
He
is this
did
with
stop
the...
us before leaving and say to us that not to spend too much time in that sewing room. For some reason, he felt uncomfortable there.
I was
Actually,
sprinkling.
hold on.
It seemed so directed toward me. I was really quite startled. I felt a slap at one point on the face. I felt somebody slap me, and there was no...
Going toe to toe.
Christmas, 1975.
Would you like get up and try and fight?
The lovely house at 112 Ocean Avenue is a dream
Who the hell slapped me?
But from the day they move in, they begin to detect the house's strange sensations.
All homes have sounds that you need to come adjusted to. How the water sounds. A dishwasher in the middle of the night. There's sounds that all homes have.
As the holidays draw to a close, however, the sensations in the house grow increasingly ominous.
After the love of Christmas came down, that's when the sounds in the house were different. They weren't ones that I wanted to become familiar with. It changed. There wasn't the warm glow anymore. Now there was a blaze. There was a scraping. And there was a banging. The children who had been anticipating a holiday were now anticipating different things that brought a fear on.
We each saw things so drastically different than the person right next to us that it was very hard for us to communicate even as a family.
When I look back, sometimes I describe it like a 3-ring circus, each one being in their own room or their own area of the house, experiencing for themselves something different than what the other person was.
George is attacked by a sensation of intense cold. He compulsively builds fires in the living room fireplace, but he can never get warm enough.
He became obsessed with how much firewood there was, and then would there be enough to keep burning. but he would be continually going about the fireplace, checking the fire.
Fights break out between the
Honey,
normally loving
I think
family
that's
members.
enough wood.
Slowly, each of their personalities begins to change. In the ensuing
Just
days,
pop my
the
hip.
family is subjected to a series of strange and inexplicable events. Extreme fluctuations in temperature, the sickening scent of old perfume, recurring black stains on the bathroom fixtures, and an infestation of flies in the dead of winter.
When we first looked at the house, very first time, we noticed no flies anywhere in the house. Especially when you think back now, they were limited, in particular, to the sewing room second floor. Same bedroom that Father Ray had asked us not to use as a bedroom. The longer we were in the house, the more flies there were in that room. I don't have an explanation for how or why, but that's where they were.
As the days wear on, other strange discoveries fueled the Lutz's mounting sense of unease.
I was down in the basement one afternoon, and there was a particular shelf.
Screw that. I would never go in the basement in the house.
I really wanted to relocate, and it looked like a portable. So I moved it, and much to my surprise, there was a small room behind it, and it was painted a red.
We keep calling it a room, but we don't know what else to call it. It's a very small space. The fact that it was red and that it had an odor was the disturbing part.
Was it a fungus?
And when Harry, our black lab, wouldn't go near the room.
Oh, puppy. Animals know best, man.
More disturbing.
This red room was not in the original house plans. Who built it? Why was it hidden? Soon the Lutz's puzzlement turns to abject terror. Night after night, George is snapped awake at 3:15 a.m.
Oh my gosh. I remember when we would watch like paranormal movies and stuff like that, it always like the whole entire thing of like the witching hour being at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I swear it never fails. It's like when you watch stuff like this, whether it be just like a documentary, whether it's like a movie, it's always like engraved in your mind. And then you end up waking up at like 3 o'clock in the morning. You're like, well, this is it. This is it.
Of the murders. While Kathy is plagued by nightmares in which she relives the horror of the DeFeo tragedy.
There was one that was very vivid in where I experienced where the bullets went in and out of Mrs. DeFeo's body. And I was able to determine who died in what order. And later on, when
Oh my gosh,
we
that
met
gave me the
with
chills.
who was the attorney for Ronald DeFeo, and he confirmed what the police had found, and they had never published where the bullets went in and out of the body.
George becomes disturbed at the way his wife and children begin sleeping in their beds. The same position as the murdered DeFeos.
I would not sleep on my stomach. Everyone else did. None of us ever slept on our stomachs before moving in the house. We later came to believe that's the position the bodies were in.
Slowly but inexorably, the influence spreads to the children. In particular, 5-year-old Missy, who boasts about her new imaginary playmate, Jody.
I recall one morning I was in the kitchen, and Melissa came in, and she said to me, "Mommy, do angels talk?" I said, "Yeah, I think so." "Why?" And she said, "Well, I think I have an angel in my room."
Missy described it as a pig that had the ability to be very big or very small, invisible or visible. But Missy would say things about it that it said that you knew she couldn't make up on her own. One of the most uncomfortable statements that Jody made was, "You will always live here." That's not something that makes you comfortable to hear your child's invisible friend is saying that.
George and Kathy dismiss the stories of their daughter's invisible friend until Jody makes its presence known to them.
I saw
That's
eyes
freaky.
looking down at me from Missy's bedroom window when I would be coming back from the boathouse at night. I would run into the house, run upstairs, and there'd be nothing there.
Nope.
There would be times that Missy would be sitting on her bed talking, and you'd walk past, you'd see the rocking chair moving, but Missy was on the bed. There were a couple of times that we saw eyes from the outside looking into the house. There were
That was like
cracks
one
in
of the moments
snow
that freaked me out in the movie.
made by
It's when she goes to
something
look
very
outside and there's red eyes just staring.
During the first 2 weeks of January 1976, a series of terrifying and mind-numbing events finally convinced the Lutzes that some evil force is residing in their house.
How do you explain an odor that all of a sudden appears, or a cold spot in a room that you walk through, the cold is not there anymore? Or the front door slamming, and you go running down and the door's still locked, but you heard it happen.
Yeah, that's messed up.
Desperate to rid their home of the diabolical presence, the Lutzes are advised by a friend to first open all of the windows throughout the house and then go from room to room reciting the Lord's Prayer.
Sounded like a solution to us. We did the same thing. When we did that, we heard a chorus of voices say to us, "Will you stop?" I believe that's one of the things that we did that caused the presence there to become less than happy with us.
Not until sunrise does the family dare fall asleep, unaware that their battle with the supernatural has just begun.
That's
After
freaky.
failing to cast the evil presence out of the house on Ocean Avenue, the Lutzes attempt to seek help from Father Ray, the Catholic priest who first came to bless the house, but find their efforts to reach him thwarted by some unknown force.
Anytime I would attempt that call, that contact, we would run into interference on the phone. There were times when Father Ray would attempt to call us, and the connection again would be broken up with static.
After we left the house, Father Ray told the story of sitting in the chancellor's office and just discussing the possibility of helping us in some way. And hearing the heat come up.
I love, you could probably just hear my my chair creaking like crazy.
And the incredible chill, cold that came into the room. And he said all we were doing was discussing it, and it started happening.
After again attempting to bless the house on their own, the Lutzes experience a night of horror they say they will never forget. The last night they would ever spend in the house. Never do the Lutzes discuss the specific events of that night. The memory, they say, is still too disturbing.
We left to the house because the house became uninhabitable. As far as we were concerned, there was no reason to stay there anymore. There were too many things happening too often and confronting us constantly. Those specific events are not something that we try to sit down and explain to anyone else. That's why the book was done, so that that's not something that we have to go through anymore.
To describe fear and the depth of what fear can do within you is hard to verbalize. To describe evil, which has no boundary, is hard to present. But this is what the family was experiencing that night. Each one with the
It's
degree
creepy.
that they
I'm sorry. It's really, really creepy.
sense for our very lives.
Whatever you like believe in or anything like that, whether it's the paranormal, like even just the logics of like something occurring how it did is just really creepy.
On January 14, 1976, 28 days after moving in, the Lutzes flee 112 Ocean Avenue, abandoning the house and everything they own.
Yeah.
Despite the certainty of a huge financial loss, George and Kathy decide to return the house to the bank and sell all of their personal belongings at auction.
We couldn't eradicate that which was there and didn't want to be responsible for passing it on.
We bought the house for $80,000. It had a mortgage of $60,000. We had put another $4,000 or so down at the closing. When the auctioneer took care of the contents of the house, I think we netted $1,600, something like that, from
Oh my gosh.
the sale. We moved to California and we started over.
One of the instructions we received was that there was one item that we could take out, but anything else would not have been healthy for us. The one item that we had was a large cedar box that had been built by George's grandfather, and inside of that was some of the children's baby pictures. That's about the only item we came out with.
I wouldn't even take that. Honestly, I'd be like, I'm good. Thank you. Pictures are in here. We're good.
Follows them to California.
When we left the house, we sat down and did a series of tapes for self-help, and we just talked about everything we could possibly remember that took place in the house. And that eventually became the Amityville Horror, the book. The movie, on the other hand, was a work of Hollywood.
In the midst of all the media hype surrounding their story, the Lutzes claim the evil forces continued to haunt them for many years, until help came from the exorcist for the Archbishop of Canterbury.
He performed a rite in his church that helped us for the rest of our lives. There came a point when we said we have to stop blaming things that aren't right or going right in our lives on the house. But as time went on, it was like a half-life. It just slowly went away until today it really doesn't exist.
That's insane.
George and Kathy, who are now divorced, maintain that their experiences in Amityville have had the most lasting impact on their personal lives.
The story of our lives through Amityville is not the story of one person going through. It's the story of a family, 5 members, each one coming with what affected them and bringing it in. I think what we lost there was the people that we had been prior to moving in. The children in particular, their life was so dramatically touched by what they experienced there. So you could retrieve some things, but you couldn't retrieve that portion of your life prior to.
But what of the supernatural forces that drove the family out of...
Okay. So a little bit, just because we are done with my makeup and everything, and I don't want to... This is a very long video, but both of which that were already talked about, like Amityville and like both scenarios. If you have not watched the movies, I do highly recommend watching like the older ones. I think they're... I want to say, was it 87? Hold on. Amityville. Let me see just really quick. So 79 Amityville Horror was released. Amityville 2 The Possession 1982. That one, I'm telling you right now, I remember watching it for the first time. So little background story. My sister, she is actually 15 years older than me. So long story short, she got married, everything like that. Still is married and everything. But we would stay over, and I say we as in like myself and my 2 other brothers, we would stay overnight over there. And I remember one of the nights we watched Amityville The Possession. And oh my Lord, we like could not sleep. It was one of those things that really just stuck with you. And I just remember the one part is when he gets possessed and his face, just the way it changes and everything like that, it like haunted me for the longest time. And this wasn't the first like horror movie that I seen. I mean, we grew up like watching horror, and my sister being born, she was born in 78. So 80s movies, horror, everything like that has always been a part of my life and just something that I really loved and craved. So it's not like this was like the first horror movie that like I had seen and was like absolutely just traumatized. No, not at all. But it still sticks with me because my brothers were even scared. So yeah, that says a lot. And yeah, it's really insane when you think about like paranormal type of stuff, and when things go to trial, and as we've seen, like having the whole instance of like pleading insanity or pleading possession. I mean, you could see a lot of it being in the Conjuring movies as well. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the Conjuring movies, but yeah, those are really, really, really good. But you also have to take them with a grain of salt because everybody has their opinions about the Warrens. I mean, personally, I haven't read enough about like the Warrens and everything like that, and still to this day, I have my opinions about it, and as does everybody else, like saying, you know, it was a ploy to, for the Warrens to do what they did. They, like, went about things, in a not so nice way, but for me personally, just from what I've seen, again, I could just not have read so much about it, but I personally like them. My brothers actually have read some of their books as well too. So, but either way, do with what you will, with what I'm talking about and everything like that. But I personally, I don't mind them. But, so Conjuring movies, if you haven't seen them, I highly recommend them. First one is my absolute favorite. I thought that they were supposed to do an Amityville one, but I haven't seen anything unless there's like something supposed to be coming out. I don't know. But yep. So hold on one second. Let me just go about we'll go here so I could do a little ending spiel. So this is the finished look we got going on. I really like this like whole get ready with me type of deal. I was actually getting ready today and I was just like, you know what? Because I was getting ready to record videos, so you might see me in, like, you know, same outfit per usual. But I was just like, let's just do a get ready with me. It's just very, I feel like it's very, very, like, just chill. And what better way to do it than, like, watching some horror stuff. So I think it was pretty cool. But I do appreciate you all being here. As for you, I hope that this year brings you nothing but happiness and growth. And two, I really look forward to seeing where the YouTube channel goes. I'm trying to be good and not cuss as much when it comes to the YouTube channel. Just saying, because I don't want to get my stuff demonetized. Not that I have to worry about that right just yet, but still gonna try and work on that. But if you would like to hear me cuss up a storm and everything like that, you can follow over on my Twitch channel /LeTV. If you would like to head on over there, I would really appreciate it. I stream every single day besides Sundays and Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Central. So yeah, if you would like to head on over there, I would really appreciate it. I will, of course, drop the link to the channel below in the description. I hope you all have a wonderful time zone, and thank you for being here. I'll talk to you later. Bye! This free... Oh, what happened? This, what? Where'd it go?